everyone, welcome to Watch It Paint It. This week I'm going to be painting Malleus from Massive Darkness. So you might have noticed last week I said I'd release videos on Friday and today's only Tuesday. Now I asked you all to subscribe last week if you could, and loads of you have done so, which in turn led to about a 25% increase in subscribers on the channel, and that has led to a massive spike in likes. The last video had 40% more likes than any other video I've done, and it had a huge increase in comments as well. Hopefully you can see the spike there. And as I mentioned in the previous video, if we increase those three things, hopefully the channel will grow and I'll get an increased number of views, which you can see on that graph. There's a huge spike. So this video is an extra video this week. I worked through most of the weekend, got my head down, did some extra painting, and this is a video as a massive thank you to everyone who helped try to grow the channel last week. So I hope you enjoy watching. As tradition, I'll start by showing you all the paints that I'm going to use in this tutorial, and you'll also be able to find them in the description below in text format, nice and easy for you to look at. So I primed this model in Army Painter's Colour Primer Plate Mail Metal, which is a near perfect match to the Claymore blade from the Zombicide set. So that's him primed. I'm going to start off by painting in the skin using my Survivor skin from the Army Painter. It's part of the Zombicide set, and here I'm using the Regiment brush again by the Army Painter. So I'm painting in his face there and being very careful on the ears, just catching a little bit of paint on them because they're teeny tiny ears, back to teeny tiny models. I'm doing his hands as well there. I'll be moving on to Polished Gold. This is by Vallejo. Straight away switching down to the detail brush for this part, and I'm going to be going around and painting on all the gold parts as per his character card, and trying to be extra careful around all of the silver already, which is straight away the colour I want it to be in this base coat. So extra care taken there not to catch any of that. Anything that isn't silver I'm not too fussed about, a little bit faster in those areas. So far I've done his neck and those top bits of his shoulder pads, both his elbow pads, and he's got a little bit of decoration on the sort of his wrist guards there. I'm also painting gold his incense burner and his sort of star medallion around his waist. Just a little tip in hindsight there, I did not mean to paint his incense burner in gold there, so that should have just stayed silver. I'm going to be using Vallejo's Royal Purple. It's one of their sort of deeper purples that I have, and I'm back to the Regiment brush here, and this is going to be to paint in his sort of cloak, his robes, I guess, which are under his armour. As a warrior priest, he needs both robes and armour. It's a pretty nifty looking model. I was quite looking forward to painting this. I like a bright purple model, I guess, and a quick shortcut with the primer. I quite enjoy these mostly metallic models to begin with, just for quick wins, you know, when you're trying to paint a model very quickly over the weekend. So I bust him out for this. Yeah, just a lot of robe to paint, and as normal, I'm afraid my camera ran out of memory, so we lost the rest of the robe, but just copy the card and go carefully around it all as best you can, not getting any purple on anything if you can really help. It's quite a deep colour and difficult to paint over. So here I've taken Parasite Brown by Vallejo, and I'm painting in his sheath for his sword, his book, and a couple of the bags on around his belt. I'm going to be using Leather Brown by the Army Painter from their Zombicide set, and this is to paint in all the other bags around his waist. I just wanted to use a couple of different browns for those bags, sort of to break it up. You can't see them on the card, they're on the back, so I wasn't entirely sure what colour, and I thought it'd be more interesting if there was a couple of different shades of brown there. Necromancer Cloak from the Army Painter here, and this is just a dark grey, so any dark grey would really do. And this is to paint on sort of the straps on the sheath of his sword, the strap around his book, his belt, any part of the belt you can see around his waist. So that's the base coating done, and we're on to the shading now, the washing. I'm going to be starting with Flesh Wash, the newest wash I've got, and this is quite a good tone for skin. I mean, it's in the name, isn't it? So I'm using the detail brush here and very carefully just applying this to his face. I even gave a little tiny tip on drip on his ears and his hands as well. And then while I was painting that, I don't know if anybody else noticed, but I forgot to paint in his beard and the pages of his book there. So I've just come back to a little bit of base coating. This is using a white by the Army Painter, and that's just to give him a dab on his teeth, painting his beard and get the pages of his book so it looks a little bit more realistic. I don't know many silver page books, but they do exist, so you know, it's up to you. You can paint them whatever colour you'd like. So next is the Survivor shader, the black wash that I use, and this is for all his armour, all the browns, the whites that I put in, all of that. And last is the Toxic shader. This is a purple, a dark blue purple shader by the Army Painter, and this is for all of the robes that we've painted. I think you could very easily paint that with the black shader if you wanted more contrast, if you wanted it to look darker, I guess, shadows to be blacker. You could go with that. I was going for a more subtle shade to make highlighting a little, I guess, easier. So we're on to highlighting now, and we're starting with the skin, as I more often than not do, and that's just reapplying the Survivor skin to his face, where I think the light would be catching his cheekbones, his nose and his forehead. Next I'm just taking some white again, and I'm just painting in his eyeballs there. I'll be mixing in the white about 50-50 with the Survivor skin, just to paint up the top level highlight. Now this is the final highlight of the face, and this is just to catch his cheekbones, the tip of his nose, and sort of the bones above his eyes. I'm going to also get all of his knuckles to give them where light would be catching. So I'm going to carry on with the white here, and still with a detail brush. Oh no, sorry, this is the Insane detail brush. This is the smallest brush I use, and this is just to highlight his beard. You saw there, and the tips, the edges of the pages of his book. So I'm on to highlighting the silver now, Claymore blade. Back to the detail brush for this, and I'm just going to be going around all of the silver that we previously shaded, and I'm going to be catching all of the edges, all of the flat surfaces where light would be reflecting off. So this bit's quite time consuming. Take your time. I'm catching all of the little rivets, all of the studs in his armour there, and painting around any of the cracks that appear in his armour, so it's as though, well, either that the crack's quite recent and it's cleaner than the rest of his armour, or simply just that light would be catching the edges of the armour rather than the recess, so it makes it look a lot more 3D, a lot more realistic. With his mace, I'm catching all of those raised bits and all of those sort of rings around his mace, and I'm same on the leg. I'm going to be painting the sort of front facing part all the way down the centre up to his kneecap there, just making it look as realistic as I can. And this is me painting back in his incense burner there. Oh yeah, I keep calling it an incense burner. I've got no idea what it is. If anybody knows what that is, let me know in the comments below. I'm enjoying learning all of these sort of medieval weaponry terms that you guys are helping me with. So I'm on to highlighting the robe now. I'm just taking the original purple we used, that royal purple, and I'm using my regiment brush, quite a thick brush, and I'm just going around and painting all of the raised parts, leaving all the recesses with the shader in, and I'm painting quite thick lines because I'm going to highlight this twice more. So I'm going to take the wolf grey and mix this. This is 50-50 here, and I've gone down to the detail brush now, so I'm creating a thinner line, giving it a more realistic blend as the highlight increases. I'm still applying quite a generous amount of paint to say I'm got such a small brush, but I'm making sure it's thinner than the last coat I did, and it's just more central on the very most raised bits, all of those riffles you can see in his robe, as well as the edge of all the way around the edge of his robe, and I'm sort of blending that just slightly back towards the deeper purple that I just painted in. Taking a little more time on the hood. There's a lot of riffles there, and you can get that looking really good, and it's quite a focal point of the model. So now I'm just going to use that wolf grey from the Army Painter Neat this time. I'm just going to go around and apply a very small amount. There's very little paint on the brush at this point, and I'm just catching the very most raised edges and the edge of his robe there, and I'm not blending this back in so much. I'm just catching, almost dry brushing this across, and hopefully you can see that starting to look quite realistic. You can see the riffles in his cloak coming along. Hopefully, anyway, I think that looks good. I'm happy with it. And the other, I mean, it's a little bit poppy, but you know, I'm painting this very close to the camera. When you're playing on the table, it's nowhere near as close as that. So it's nice if you can. Well, I like if I can see the highlights at a distance. So I'm on to highlighting the gold now, and I'm using Army Painter's Zombicide's bright gold for this. So it's a different gold that I use for the base coat, and I'm just trying to catch the edges, just the same as everything else I've done. Just bring out some of the raised parts and leaving all the recessed parts shaded. You can see on the sort of medallion on his robes there, it's gone quite a dark gold, and I think that's because I used purple. It almost looks bronze with the purple wash on top of it. I really like it actually, and didn't mean to do that, but I'm happy with how it's come out. So I'm using the detail brush here, just very carefully going around and highlighting up all the edges of the gold. I'm going to be using the Parasite brown again, just the base colour I used in the first place, and this is just to highlight all of the edges of his sheath and all of those bags that I painted in Parasite brown to begin with. His book as well, you just saw I did there. I'm going to take the leather brown again by the Army Painter, just same as the previous brown. This is just to highlight the leather brown bags, so that little pouch on the front as well as these little satchels clipped to his belt around his waist. So this is not the first time this has happened. So if you ever wonder why some of my models have already got the base painted black like this model had, is because my black just sometimes I'm trying to squeeze a little bit out and I've not noticed, but the nib from the top of the paint is stuck in the lid, so I am not looking and I'm trying to pour a little bit, and it all just pours all out all over whatever palette I'm using, so that's unfortunate. So I'm going to need some new black paint. If anybody's got any recommendations, leave those in the comments for me below, or better yet, if you work for the Army Painter, help me help you, send me some more black paint. There I'd painted the base in black after clearing up the massive mess on my desk, and here I'm just using the insane detail brush and I'm just painting in his pupils. I've not speeded this up because it's such a short piece. I just wanted you to see me doing it. I'm just being as careful as I can and just putting a single dot. I'm actually putting them to the side. This guy's looking a little bit shifty, but I got them both right. He hasn't got a lazy eye. It just looks like he's looking to the side for whatever reason. He's not trusting the party he's with. He's suspicious of them, I think. And they're suspicious of him because he's just carrying a mace and incest, and nobody really knows why. And there you go. Hopefully you can see that. He's got little pupils, and they look nice. I like him. I'm happy with his eyes, his little shifty eyes. The sneaky biscuit. And stop the clock. This time it's taken quite a long time, especially to say I started with the primer in the colour. Most of the model was, but an hour and 24. It's not too bad start to end. And here you can see him in his final form. So this is the completed model. I enjoyed it. It wasn't too difficult, and I think he looks pretty good finished. He's going to look nice on the board. As I mentioned, purple stands out quite nicely. It's quite unique, so I look forward to adding him to the party and playing him in Massive Darkness, get my heel on. So if you enjoyed the video, please like it below. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments. If you didn't enjoy it, let us know in the comments why, and I'll try and improve. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you Friday.